Today we are reviewing the Santa Cruz Carbon Chameleon. I used to have a size small Santa Cruz Chameleon, aluminum, and I love that thing. The head angle was a little bit steep for some of the stuff that I like to do, but overall it was a fantastic bike. Recently I got my hands on a carbon one, and I've been wondering, is the carbon one better than the aluminum one? Who would benefit from each? Does it ride stiffer? Does it ride softer? Is it much lighter? Today we're going to answer all those questions. Oh, this bike's definitely stiffer than the aluminum one. Instantly noticeable. Wow. Even on these night carbon wheels that I love that are super soft, they're not soft on this bike. I was actually wondering, I was wondering if these wheels would just make every hardtail feel compliant. The answer is an emphatic no. This does not feel compliant. It sprints like a rocket ship. This is the stiffest carbon hardtail I've ever ridden. I've had it at the pump track, and I had a lot of fun on that. It pumps so well. And it is nice and light. Wow, this is stiff. Man, this is a harsh ride. This is harsher than the common salt. And that's saying something. I'm gonna let some air out of the tires because this is beating my fillings out. Oh, this bike is every bit as playful as I remember. This bike is so fun. The back end is perfect on this except for the stiffness. Just feels like a dirt jumper. This is how hardtails should be in the back. Front's a little twitchy with that 67.5-degree head angle. I'm running a 130 fork. I've got my seat slammed all the way forward because I like a steep seat tube, and this does not have a steep seat tube. Without it being slid all the way forward, you feel like it wants to wheelie all the time and the weight's too far back. I feel like this frame needs a refresh. Been a few years, and even when it came out, it wasn't extremely aggressive or modern. It needs a 65 to 66 degree head angle and a steeper seat tube angle, and don't touch the rear because the rear is perfect. But I actually am liking the aluminum one better than the carbon one, because that aluminum one rode so compliant. It was just such a great feel. But the carbon one is overly stiff. It transfers a lot of vibrations to your feet, and it's great on super smooth stuff to pump, but on chattery stuff like this, man, it beats you up. Whereas the aluminum one doesn't. Yeah, that front end feels a little steep on that stuff. You can't really punch through and roll those drops. You have to stand up and you have to kind of push through it and manual out of everything, because otherwise the front end gets hung up on stuff. All right, I let about 3 PSI out. That made a big difference. It's still harsh, but it's beating me up less. That's why I love plus tires on these bikes. Woo! I am not picking lines. My bike is picking lines for me. This bike wants to play, but it's not composed enough to dive into this with speed. This bike just wants to manual everywhere. I love it. It's too stiff though. Man, it's sketchy how stiff it is. Yeah, man, that steep head angle is freaky. When you drops, it wants to tuck behind you instead of stay out in front of you. so used to slack bikes, it's hard to go back. For most trails, however, this will be adequate and great. The Chameleon really is a super fun bike. You don't get insane value for the money with the parts spec. You're paying a lot for that Santa Cruz name. But you're also paying for a great geometry aside from that head angle. And like I said, if you're on flatter stuff or more rolly stuff, not ledgy like this, the head angle is probably just about right for you. I think 66 would be perfect on this. And I don't think a 140 fork would make this ride better, just worse. I totally feel like I'm on a BMX bike on the trails. I feel like a kid again. It's a special bike. I'm still loving these night wheels. They're so special, but they're not taking the stiffness out of this frame. This bike's so light, the wind's blowing it sideways. I love the acceleration of this frame. You just get on it, and man, it takes off. Up a rock into the down tube. That's one thing about a carbon frame. It's kind of freaky knowing that a rock or an impact could break it. But Santa Cruz has a great warranty. In this smooth rolly stuff, the stiff frame is a benefit because you just get on it and it goes. Yeah, since it's so smooth, there's no rocks to beat you up. So this is one of the most playful bikes I've ever ridden. I love the playful factor. And for this type of riding, the head angle is just fine. It's when you get into steeper, ledgier stuff that we rode earlier today. Oh, that's stiff. All right, I've had a few rides on this bike now, and let me tell you where it really excels. Pump tracks, dual slalom tracks, jumps, smooth stuff that you just want to pump and fly and feel like a kid again. It is amazing at that. For single speed, I would recommend going the aluminum route. The aluminum chainstay does not dip that far and you don't need a 34 tooth. I would definitely run aluminum. In fact, I would run aluminum for almost everything. The aluminum bike is more forgiving. It doesn't beat you up as much. It's cheaper. It takes a beating if a rock flings into it. It doesn't matter. And I think it's the better bike. Now, if you're on really smooth stuff and you want instant power transfer, this has that way better. When you get on it in sprint, it doesn't flex anywhere. It just turns that into forward motion. And that is a really cool feeling, especially single speed. I mean, it's not an XC bike. If you want an XC bike, they make an XC hardtail that's carbon that'll be great for that. So I don't really know who the Chameleon carbon is for. It's for people who feel the allure of carbon and want a carbon bike, maybe want a little bit lighter bike, but the ride quality is not better than the aluminum one. The ride quality is better on the aluminum bike, in my opinion. Man, this has been a really interesting exercise. That is the stiffest carbon frame I've ridden. Stiffer than the Diamondback Sinker, stiffer than the Ibis Db9, and aside from the weight savings, I don't feel like it's an upgrade over the aluminum one. And that was a big shock to me. I don't like the internal cable routing. I don't like that it's only internal in the front half. If you're gonna go internal, go all the way and run it all the way to the back. I don't like how close that gets for single speeding. I do like that it has ISCG tabs. I wish the head angle was a little bit slacker. It's a little bit scary for rowdy stuff. I think a 120 to 130 fork is the right amount to run on this. You can over fork it and make it a little bit slacker, but I think it actually takes away from what this bike does so well. This is probably the most playful bike I've ever ridden. It wants to pop off things, it wants to manual, it wants to wheelie, it wants to bunny hop, and it does it so willingly. It makes you feel like a kid again. The Santa Cruz Chameleon is a fantastic bike. It's overpriced. For the spec that you get, your money doesn't go very far. But when we're comparing hardtails, I'd rather have something like this with low-end spec like NX Eagle instead of a different bike that's way less fun with the best of the best, with full XTR and Fox factory I don't care because the full XCR doesn't make it ride more fun. It just makes it shift a little better. The frame is what makes it ride fun. And this is a super fun frame. If Santa Cruz ever makes a slacker one of these, or one that can accept an angle set, it will probably become my favorite bike. I've said that a few times. It is so good, especially the back half. That front half, all it needs is a little bit slacker so it's not so sketchy at speed and down drops and stuff. And man, it will be a perfect bike. I would give this bike a 10 out of 10 for climbing, 10 out of 10 for playfulness, 9 out of 10 for steering. That steep head angle is just a little bit nervous. And on the descents, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 unless it's just flow. This is probably the best bike for flow. How would I compare this to the Ibis Db9? The Db9 feels like it could go a little bit farther on a 40-mile day, but I think I would pick this in aluminum over the Db9. It's just more fun, and that's what hardtails are all about for me. If you take yourself seriously and you're racing and really pushing the clock, the Db9 is gonna be the better bike. But if you just wanna have fun, man, these Santa Cruz Chameleons are fantastic bikes. And even though they're a little bit more expensive, I love them. They are very, very fun. And the second I got back on this, it reminded me of what I loved about the other one that I rode. I don't think the carbon Chameleon is the way to go. It's overpriced. It doesn't have fantastic features, and the ride quality is not better than the aluminum. So I'd rather take something that's more durable, cheaper, maybe a little bit heavier, but that rides a lot better and doesn't beat me up. So there you have it. Is carbon better? It depends. It depends on what you want it to do. For really stiff sprinting and really tight pumping and real energy efficiency, the carbon is great. But for everyday trail riding and goofing off and pushing this beyond what it's meant to do, I think aluminum is the way to go. And that's just talking about the Chameleon. Every bike is different. Some carbon frames are nice and soft, some are really harsh and stiff like this, and some are in between like the Db9. If you learned something and you find it valuable for me to compare bikes like this, consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron. For as little as $5 a month, you can make a big difference and really impact this channel and help shape its future. Thanks for watching. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.